What is the difference between evaporation and boiling? A very simple answer to that might be is boiling is what happens at atmospheric pressure at 100 degrees Celsius to water. But evaporation actually happens all the time to liquid water. Again, that's maybe simplifying things a little bit there. Both of them represent water going from liquid phase to gas phase. But again, boiling only happens at this specific temperature. It does vary with pressure. So if you reduce the atmospheric pressure at higher elevations, in other words, water will boil at a lower temperature. But what is significant in the difference between the two is like if you have some water that is boiling versus just sitting there, right? So like let's say I've got some water here in like a pot, right? So maybe this is like a pot and here's some water roughly. If it's just sitting there at room temperature at sea level, let's say, evaporation is going to happen. If you wait long enough, all this water will actually disappear because it will have evaporated into the air. And depending on where you are, you might have to wait a while. I sometimes like to say people in Humboldt don't always know about this because it takes a lot longer here than it does in drier climates, perhaps. But still, it will happen eventually. Hopefully before mold starts growing in the water. Boiling, in contrast, though, you need to apply heat, and it needs to get to a certain temperature first. And the key difference is with boiling, there are those bubbles that form in it. And so one way of looking at it is to say that boiling happens at a temperature, right? So there needs to be heat. So let me put like a little flame underneath here. Maybe this thing's over a burner, right? Boiling happens when spontaneous bubble nucleation is occurring within the liquid. One way of looking at that is you could say it's the point at which evaporation starts to happen internally. And it turns out that's related to when a temperature is reached where the vapor pressure of the liquid is high enough. So let's go ahead and check how that compares to what the answer says here in the slide. It says evaporation occurs across any boundary of liquid to gas. So in other words, all you need is this boundary here at the top. That's why if it was just sitting there and there was no burner, it would already be happening. But boiling entails, again, the spontaneous formation of bubbles within a liquid and will only occur at a high enough temperature that the vapor pressure exceeds the pressure in the bulk. In other words, whatever the liquid pressure is inside this liquid here, when the vapor pressure of the water is high enough, then those bubbles will start to form.